YouTubers, good morning. Happy Saturday, everybody. Today is my Friday, technically. I'm off for 2 days after this. Spend some relaxing time with the family. Subscribe and watch what I got going on over the weekend. I got a few projects around the house I gotta get done, and I'll keep you guys posted. What is happening in Australia? Prices are just gonna keep going up. My favorite is when you're at those parties and everyone that bots in one section of the party, drinking champagne, living off their homes and equity, and then there's the other people at the party, which would include myself, that basically, aren't buying into this foolish scam. People that bought in the country like I did or left, they're doing okay, because now they don't have this massive overhead of living expense. So what is happening in Australia? Australia's party boom is well and truly over. Oh my God. Anyways, this is from articles from 8 days ago. I got a few more coming today, guys. House prices in Australian capitals, cities have been booming for a better half of the last 2 decades. When I keep talking in trends in the housing market, that Australia's been having a bear market in the housing market since 1975. When Barry White was making music, people thought when people were using cassette 8-track tapes, people would laugh at me, say, Mike, you're delusional. Delusional Mike. With our capital cities expanding and at lightning rates, thanks to the international and state migration, it seems like the boom would never end. The extent of booming economy has been so incredible, it has become the norm for Australia. Australians aren't really conditioned to expect stock market or real estate falls or depression. Yeah, they're riding the golden wave here. But like all things, what goes up must come down, as reported by the Sydney Morning Herald early this week. Only half the properties that went to auction in Sydney, Melbourne on the weekend found buyers. Only half! Australian property owners are waking up to the mother of all housing debt hangovers. That's what happens, you see, when you go on an unprecedented credit binge fueled by cheap credit and loose lending standards. Generally, a wider market has cooled, with transaction numbers falling, selling periods extending, and prices declining. Melbourne has eclipsed Sydney and the nation's worst-performing capital, with prices falling 5% in recent months, according to the recent analysis by investment bank Morgan Stanley. For years, your money morning editors have been warning that Australia's real estate has been looking more and more like a bubble, and recently have mainstream economists and newspapers starting to agree. Ooh, so they're starting to agree. Oh, they're going to play the flip side. I've been talking about the Australian housing economy for like 4 or 5 years. Why? Because affordability doesn't work. When you have to pay 70% of your income from your 2 jobs to cover rent. Yeah, put the emphasis on the R. Rent. You got a problem, and you have a max exodus of Sydneyans and Melbournians leaving their cities because they can't. Well, there was a mass exodus to Melbourne, and because of the fact that the affordability issues in Melbourne were a bit better than Sydney. But then you had all places like Hobart go up in price because of it's affordable, and it's an island, you're off the mainland, you feel better in Tasmania. But you know what? It's the middle class that fuels the infrastructure and the economy. They felt like they were unable, and the smart ones that went to West Australia were the smart ones to build a small, meaningful, less expensive life and enjoy what it means to be, especially the professionals that left. All small towns need a doctor. All small towns need somebody in a real position that could help and build the town. What does this mean for homeowners? This is a controversial view has a potential to undermine the stability of the whole nation's economy. Our banking sector is built on the foundation of housing. Bingo! It's built off housing, not exports. Not even stocks. It's built off housing. Not even student loans. It's housing. Mortgages and banks are making a massive proportion of our stock market, around 30% of ASX. However, with the Australian property prices having boomed for so many years, it's no surprise the correction is on the horizon. Now, if the housing boom is actually over, that doesn't mean that your house is suddenly worthless. If you own your home, you can still live in it. It just as happily as before. But investors with too much debt are overly dependent on rising prices may be in trouble. So if you've been living off your house like an ATM machine, taking out money to buy stuff, taking exotic vacations, going to the parties, the block parties, talking about how I own, well, you're underwater. You owe more for your house than what it's worth. The troubles is, with so much debt in the system, it could be difficult to correct, even slow down the housing bubble without triggering a full crash. One that could have disastrous effects of a wider economy. Controversial, but often prophetic. Economist Harry Dent believes that Australia is currently in the mother of all bubbles. He says, Australia is now by far the most overvalued country in the developed world. Sydney is now 42% more overvalued than the median income than San Francisco. The first stage of the housing bubble bursting. Now, in half the properties in Sydney and Melbourne didn't manage to sell last weekend. And if we look at the following numbers in all cities, we could be looking at the first stage of the bubble bursting. Dent pens in his newest book, 0 Hour, that real estate in many countries, Australia being one of the worst, and inflated extreme bubble territory. Now, Dent's predictions are not always correct, but he has a pretty impressive track record. This time, his comments may be too accurate to ignore, especially with all that's happening in our housing market. And he's not late to this party either. Below is an example of the kind of charts Harry Dent has been showing and speaking towards of Australia's years. This is from his the 2018-14 annual Demographic International Housing Affordability Survey, which shows the two biggest cities amongst the most overpriced worlds. So there's Hong Kong, Beijing, Shanghai, Sydney, Vancouver, Melbourne, Los Angeles, which is seeing a crash right now, Honolulu, San Francisco, which is seeing declines right now, Auckland is seeing declines right now, London's been seeing declines right now for the last 20 months. Toronto is in the pits right now. That's not updated right there, but it's in the pits right now. Denver is going down right now from the mass exodus of Californians moving in there. Singapore, Tampa is seeing a huge decline. Tampa, Dallas, Chicago, Atlanta, all overpriced. They're closer to normal, but you know what? They're gonna see a little bit of damage in those areas because the rate hikes created some sort of aggregation against. Created a buffer zone against the crash in the U.S. So with rates going up for the longest time right now in the U.S. is a good buffer zone to help create an aggregation against the crash, so it won't be as significant as 2006 or 2007, 2008 crash. If Harry Dent is right, the consequences could be catastrophic for our banks, our stock market, perhaps out entire country. Best wishes. P.S. If you manage your own money and simply want to learn the most effective strategies but to both growth and protect your wealth, this is a free report. So I read these reports all the time. I have a lot of downtime here in my store, and I just hang out and kind of read articles and see what's going on. But this housing thing in Australia, I've been following it for so long because it's better than reality TV, better than watching Survivor and Amazing Race, and it's better watching those cooking shows on CNN. This is good, you know what I'm saying? This is really good because seeing it from a third-party view, from a distance, and not even living in Australia, the numbers don't lie. And then you have the fabricated numbers. You play the supply versus demand issue for years. You played the supply versus demand issue for years. And that was a problem. So, I just wanted to throw that out there, guys. If you're living down in Sydney, Australia, Sydney, Melbourne, all the cities, Melbourne saw the increase because of Sydneyans leaving. Hobart, Perth is in the pits because the mining industry went down, and that erupted things. And then with the amount of intermigration within the country, it's changing the face of Australia, of what Australia is, today. You're going to start seeing smaller towns bloom and blossom and expand because a lot of people, like myself, we left the big city. We were just tired of this whole paying so much. You know what I'm saying? I got drama in my town, which is really good because it keeps me on my toes, keeps me sharp you know, keeps me knowing who my enemies and who's with me, you know, type of thing. It's really good. Anyways, guys, comment below. Let me know if you're living in Australia. What is happening? I got many more stories to read for you guys. Thanks for watching.